For nearly a century, Betty White was America's sweetheart, a golden girl whose smile could light up any room. We knew her as the witty Rose Nylund, the sharp-tongued Sue Ann Nivens, and the mischievous Elka Ostrovsky. But behind that warm, familiar face was a woman of incredible courage, a woman who carried a secret for decades, a secret that reveals a side of her we never knew. This isn't just a story about a Hollywood legend. It's the story of a hidden hero. Most people know Betty White loved animals more than anything. Her tireless work for animal welfare is legendary. But what if I told you her compassion wasn't limited to furry friends? What if I told you it extended to her fellow humans in a way that put her own life and career on the line? Let's rewind to 1954. Betty White isn't just a rising star. She's a powerhouse. She has her own daily talk show, The Betty White Show. She's one of the first women in history to have full creative control over her own national television program. This was a time when men dominated Hollywood, both in front of and behind the camera. Betty was breaking barriers, but she was about to face a test that had nothing to do with ratings. On her show, Betty regularly featured a tap dancer named Arthur Duncan. Arthur was incredibly talented, a charismatic performer with feet that moved like lightning. The audience loved him. But in the segregated America of the 1950s, not everyone was happy to see a black performer on their television screens. The backlash was swift and ugly. Letters and phone calls poured into the network, filled with racist complaints. Stations, particularly in the southern states, threatened to boycott the show. "Get him off the show," they demanded. The pressure on Betty was immense. Her career, her show, everything she had worked for was suddenly at risk. The network executives got nervous. They went to Betty and told her that Arthur had to go. Now, imagine this moment. You're a young woman who has fought tooth and nail to build your dream. The powerful men who control your industry are telling you to fire your friend, to bow to prejudice, or lose everything. What would you do? Most people would have probably caved. It would have been the easy, safe choice. But Betty White was not most people. She looked them right in the eye and said two simple words, "I'm sorry." But she wasn't apologizing for her decision. She was telling them she wouldn't back down. Then she added, "He stays. Live with it." Betty didn't just refuse to fire Arthur Duncan. She did the opposite. She doubled down. She started featuring him on the show even more frequently. It was a quiet, powerful act of defiance. She was using her platform, her power, to stand for what was right. Consequences be damned. She was essentially telling the bigots of the world, "This is my show, and on my show, talent is all that matters." The threats to boycott became a reality. Several stations dropped her program. The controversy, combined with other pressures, eventually led to The Betty White Show being canceled later that year. She lost her show. She took a huge financial and professional hit. And for what? For standing by her friend, for refusing to participate in the ugliness of racism. And here's the most incredible part of the story. Betty White never talked about it. For over 60 years, she never publicly mentioned the stand she took. She didn't brag about it in interviews or write about it in her memoirs. She didn't use it to build her brand as an activist. She just did the right thing, quietly, and moved on. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was a matter of principle. The secret only came to light decades later, in a 2018 documentary called Betty White, First Lady of Television. In it, a now elderly Arthur Duncan tearfully recounted the story. He spoke of how Betty had changed his life, how she gave him his start and stood up for him when no one else would. He explained that after Betty's show was canceled, his career took off. He went on to become a regular on The Lawrence Welk Show for nearly 2 decades, becoming a household name and breaking down racial barriers for a generation of performers. When Betty was finally asked about it in the documentary, her response was pure Betty. She just shrugged, with that twinkle in her eye, and said, "I had to. I never thought twice about it." For her, it wasn't a grand gesture. It was just basic human decency. This story changes how we see Betty White, doesn't it? We already loved her for her humor and her kindness. But knowing this adds a whole new layer of respect. She wasn't just funny. She was fearless. She wasn't just a star. She was a woman of unshakable integrity. In an era of social media where every good deed is broadcast for likes and shares, Betty's quiet courage feels like a lesson from another time. It is a reminder that true character isn't about what you do when the world is watching. It's about what you do when you think no one is looking. It's about making a stand not for applause, but because it's the right thing to do. Betty White could have had a longer run with her first show. She could have played it safe and become even more successful even sooner. But she chose a different path. She chose friendship over fame and integrity over income. By losing her show, she gained something far more valuable, a legacy of quiet heroism. The next time you see a clip of Betty White making someone laugh, remember this story. Remember the iron will beneath the golden smile. She was more than a television icon. She was a moral compass, a silent pioneer who fought a battle for equality and never even asked for a thank you. She truly was one of a kind. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this incredible story with me. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more stories that inspire, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. We'll see you in the next one.